Gotta say, what an odd title. I have to at least give this to The Lion King 1.5. Even though it only bears that title in some countries, it lets you know right off the bat what kind of movie that you will be getting. The title itself is straight out of the Naked Gun series, which is fitting considering this is primarily played as a comedy. However, it's not really a sequel so much as a parallel spin-off thing. The film begins with Timon and Pumbaa watching the first movie in a silhouetted theater, nearly identical to Mystery Science Theater 3000. Wait, are they going to riff on The Lion King? Nope. As it turns out, they want to show the folks at home what they were doing in the original film when they weren't on screen. This sets the stage for the story of how Timon and Pumbaa met and subsequently discovered Hakuna Matata, life without worry. Along the way, they come across characters both new and old in their quest for contentment and belonging. As you would probably guess, the premise requires a sizable suspension of disbelief. The fact that Timon and Pumbaa were just off screen during many of the iconic scenes from the first movie is a lot to swallow. However, the sense of implausibility is somewhat lessened by it being part of the joke. The whole point was to put a more comedic spin on the scenes from The Lion King. Part of the humor stems from the fact that Timon and Pumbaa, in this movie at least, were in all of these places just off camera. By extension, we as audience members are supposed to laugh at how these characters would react to each given scenario. In that sense, the film actually works pretty well. Some of the funniest moments come when we see the characters in the theater messing with the movie. Granted, a number of jokes and even sentimental moments feel forced and awkward, but for the most part, The Lion King 1.5, I still can't believe that's what it's called, works as a comedy. Part of that has to do with the fact that they once again got much of the original cast back to voice these characters. Nathan Lane is especially good here, showing a more personal side to Timon that we haven't seen before. For a character that originated as comic relief, he works surprisingly well as a lead protagonist in this type of comic setting. Ernie Sabella is also great as Pumbaa, clearly comfortable in the role by now and bringing a likable innocence that still plays well off of Lane's sarcastic approach. We also get the main trio of hyenas back as primary antagonists, complete with Whoopi Goldberg, Cheech Marin, and Jim Cummings reprising their roles. They even get Robert Guillaume, Matthew Broderick, and Moira Kelly to voice their respective characters, Rafiki, and the adult versions of Simba and Nala. They all do well when they're there, but they go from supporting characters to bit parts this time around, with most of the movie's runtime being devoted solely to Timon and Pumbaa. However, a new character comes in the form of Timon's Ma, voiced by Julie Kavner. Yep, Marge Simpson plays Timon's mom, and she does a really good job. She can be warm and motherly, but she also generates a few chuckles by being simultaneously sarcastic and overbearing. Another new player is Jerry Stiller as Uncle Max. This guy is one of the funniest aspects of the film, stealing every scene he's in from even the likes of Nathan Lane. He's just so crazy and paranoid that you can't help laughing at how, for lack of a better term, animated he gets. Unfortunately, the musical score is perhaps the weakest of the trilogy. Not that the music of a comedy can really be expected to live up to its dramatic predecessors, but it's just an aspect of this film that you definitely notice. The songs are an interesting case. The Meerkats opening song, Digatana, is surprisingly catchy and has a nice beat to bob your head to. Timon's solo song, That's All I Need, is fairly appealing, but it's not all that memorable and is a bit too short to really leave much of an impact. Of course, you have the reprise of Hakuna Matata, which is a lot of fun despite being significantly shorter and only involving Timon and Pumbaa. Probably the best song in the film is the version of The Lion Sleeps Tonight by Lebo M, who, as you know, had musical involvement in the previous movies. This may be the best rendition of this particular song I have ever heard. It's so calming and tranquil while somewhat grand. The rest of the songs are taken from other films for comedic purposes. For example, the good, the bad, and the ugly theme plays during Simba and Timon's snail slurping contest. The movie makes a few mistakes when it comes to the passage of time, however, such as when Ma goes out to look for Timon before he finds Simba, and only succeeds in locating him years later when Simba is an adult. In fact, this movie basically operates under the assumption that the audience has seen the original. If not, then viewers will be somewhat lost. Not only will they not get a number of jokes and visual gags, but they might also be confused when the movie skips over certain events. For instance, there's a jump in time accompanied by a short slideshow from when Timon and Pumbaa go bowling for buzzards to when they are already well acquainted with Simba and enjoying a carefree lifestyle with him. Speaking of that, the slight revisionist approach to Timon and Simba's relationship sort of rubs me the wrong way. Making Timon a kooky stepfather feels off. For one thing, there was no hint of this in the original film, and for another thing, it kind of weakens Simba's character in lessening the gravity of his self-imposed exile. There are other changes made that don't really work. I could have done without the fart joke in the Circle of Life segment. However, the animation is surprisingly good, almost theatrical in the quality of its movements and backgrounds. In spite of its problems, The Lion King 1.5 mostly succeeds in what it sets out to do, which was to give more narrative focus to two likable supporting characters, while also putting a comedic spin on several segments of the first movie. Not all of the jokes and moments work, and the fact that it sticks so close to its predecessor in narrative doesn't really say much for its uniqueness, but the performances are solid and comfortable, the characters are fun, the animation is impressive, especially by direct-to-video standards, the humor is definitely more hit than miss, and the whole film just has a real casual atmosphere that makes for a very amusing viewing experience.